Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready for a deep dive into something uh, pretty heavy?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
We're going to be talking about drug use among kids in India,
That's
and
a big one.
it is it is a really big one. And it's something that we hear about, but we're going to really get into the nitty-gritty of it today, right?
Yeah, we're going to look at why it's happening, what kind of drugs are being used, and, how it's impacting these kids' lives.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's one thing to read a headline about it. It's another to actually understand the factors driving this issue, like what's actually happening on the ground. And we've got some pretty startling statistics and information from our sources today. For example, did you know that there's been like a 15% jump in inhalant abuse among children in India just in the last year alone?
Yeah, that's a huge red flag right there.
It's
Right.
a big one. And it kind of underscores, how urgent this issue is. So we're really lucky to have you here today. You've been working in this field for how long now?
Oh, well over a decade. It's heartbreaking to see these trends, but the more we understand, the better equipped we are to address it.
Absolutely. And that's the goal here today.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. I mean, first and foremost, what's pushing these kids towards drugs? Like, what's going on in their lives that makes this seem like a solution?
Well, think about it, right? You're a kid in India these days. There's so much pressure. You've got insane academic competition. The pressure to succeed is immense. Family expectations, societal expectations, and then you've got social media on top of that. It's like a constant barrage of images and messages. So for a lot of these kids, drugs become an escape. It's a way to just shut off all that noise for a while.
Yeah, it's almost like a pressure valve, like
Yeah.
things get so intense that they need some way to release it, and that's where the drugs come in.
Exactly. And often these kids are literally surrounded by the stuff, right? Inhalants like glue or correction fluid, I mean, that's in pretty much every household and it's easily accessible. Parents might not even think twice about it. And then there's pharmaceuticals, painkillers, cough syrups, things like that. They're perceived as safe because they're medicine.
Right. It's kind of like that saying familiarity breeds contempt. But in this case, it's more like familiarity breeds danger because we see these things every day, so we don't really register the risk.
Exactly. And that's why awareness is so crucial. And when we talk about gateway drugs, your tobacco, alcohol, that kind of thing, it's not necessarily that those instantly turn someone into an addict, right? But it's
Yeah.
like a slow burn. It normalizes substance use. You start with a cigarette here, a drink there, and it can escalate.
Right. So it's not just the immediate effect of the substance itself, it's the pathway it creates,
Yeah.
like the potential for things to get out of hand.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the consequences. This isn't just oh, these kids are making bad choices, right? We're talking serious health problems, memory impairment, problems concentrating at school, damaged relationships with family and friends.
Yeah, it's like that ripple effect.
Yeah.
It starts with the drug use, but then it just spreads outwards and impacts every area of their lives.
And it's not just their lives, it's their families, their communities. It's a societal issue. But here's the important thing. It's not hopeless. There are things we can do to help these kids.
Okay, so let's talk solutions. Where do we even start? It seems like such a huge, multifaceted problem.
Well, it has to be a multi-pronged approach, right?
Right.
We have to tackle it from different angles. Need to be talking to their kids about this, not just lecturing, but real conversations.
Yeah, it's got to be about building trust, not just like fear mongering.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Schools also have a big role to play. They can have drug education programs, mental health support. That early intervention can be so crucial.
Yeah, but some people might say that education isn't enough, that we need stricter law enforcement, harsher penalties for selling drugs, cut off the supply. What do you think about that?
Oh, for sure, law enforcement has a role,
Right.
especially in terms of making sure drugs aren't being sold near schools and stuff. But we can't just arrest our way out of this problem. We have to address the root causes. Poverty, lack of opportunity, trauma. These are all things that make kids more vulnerable.
So it's about creating a safety net, right?
Yeah.
Like a support system that catches these kids before they fall through the cracks.
Exactly. And that takes a community effort. We need community-based programs, mental health initiatives, de-addiction centers, the whole nine yards. It's not just one person's job.
It's a reminder that this is something we all have a stake in. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've talked a lot about the immediate impacts, but it makes me wonder about the long-term consequences. What does this mean for these kids' futures, for their families, for Indian society as a whole? It's a big question.
It is, and it's one we all need to be thinking about. Because this isn't just about statistics, this is about real lives.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, keep this conversation going. What are your thoughts on this issue? What do you think are the most important steps we can take to help these kids? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for having me.